Hello and welcome to the editorial analysis of The Hindu. Today we shall be discussing the editorial of the 20th of June. So coming to the first article, what a $5 trillion economy would look like. Now this article is basically context with regards to the recent stated goal. This is a goal that has been quoted by the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, during a meeting of the General Council of the Niti Aayog recently. He said that India should aim towards a $5 trillion economy. Now in this particular context, this editorial has been written as to what are the challenges that are facing the economy and what is the utility or what is the true purpose of economy is what this editorial is discussing. So it is an important one. Coming to the issues, first and foremost, the editorial is discussing about the official statistics. Now, if you have been following our videos for long, you would know that we have been discussing articles that how the statistics in India are what are flawed. Often the growth rates that are coming up are what are questioned by experts. It is being said that the government is not coming up with accurate data. So all of this is what is being highlighted here. And the editorial is saying that before any goal for the economy, what is important is that the government should aim at putting the statistics of the economy on a firm footing. Only then will we come to know whether or not the economy is what is touching 5 trillion or it is not a 5 trillion economy. That becomes secondary. What becomes primary is at least we should have the capability to measure our economy. So that is the first issue that has been discussed. The second issue which has been discussed vis-a-vis Indian economy is with regards to the Make in India. Now the editorial here is highlighting that the Make in India was one of the most ambitious programs of the government in its previous tenure. But this has largely failed. This had an aim of raising the contribution of the manufacturing sector from 16% to 25%. But clearly that is what has not materialized. Now an analysis is what is being done as to why the Make in India has failed. Now the editorial is saying that this has failed because private investment was what was not going to churn manufacturing in India. What was required was that the public sector investment was what was required. That means the government should have invested so that manufacturing is what could have would have increased and Make in India would have actually become a reality. But the ideology of the government was that of minimum government, and as a result of its ideology, the government was reluctant in investing, and as a result of which Make in India has failed. So what is important is that the government realizes this flaw, and in its present tenure, it invests more in the economy so that Make in India can be revived, and only then can this goal of $5 trillion economy be realized. So that is what has been analyzed. Also, the editorial is discussing about the historical aspect of the economy in India, and it is saying that some lessons are what are to be learned from the time of when economy was revived just after India got its independence. Now, the editorial is discussing that at that point of time, there were 3 ingredients which were used. First ingredient was design, the second ingredient was the resources, and the third most important ingredient was governance. Only when the design, resources and governance met was some degree of economic achievement achieved at that point of time. And it is important that for reaching the next level, which is the $5 trillion economy, these 3 components be learnt from the previous model and these be re-implemented. So that is what has been discussed. Next, the editorial is discussing about empowerment. Now, the editorial here is highlighting that it is very, very important in an economy that people should be empowered. Even if an economy is 5 trillion or 10 trillion and people are not empowered, then that kind of an economy is what is a failed economy. And how is empowerment going to be measured is, the editorial is offering us an idea. It is saying that India is scoring very, very low in the United Nations World Happiness Report. And this is clearly showing that if people are not happy in our country, then they are lacking empowerment. They are lacking the ability to decide for themselves and lead a life which they want. And this is reflecting a flaw in the economy. Also, the challenge for India is in the education and the health sector. So empowerment of education as well as in the health sector is what is important, so that overall the social capital of the country is what is improved. And in that sense, will the economy be a well-performing economy is what the editorial is highlighting. Another attribute of the economy that is being discussed here is the attribute of equality of opportunity. Now this, the editorial is saying, is one thing that India is facing as one of the biggest challenges, because there is a huge gap that is emerging in India. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. Even compared to China, India has a wider gap, a difference of between the rich and the poor is what is very, very wide in India, is what is being highlighted. So what is important is that this equality of opportunity be provided based on class, that means the richer as well as the poorer, based on gender. At present, the opportunities are much more for men as compared to women. If you remember, just few days back we had discussed how even in the case of employment, women have lesser scope for employment, and the unemployment rate in women is another issue that is more pertinent than even the unemployment rate of the country, for that matter, we had discussed. Also, this equality of opportunity should be in the context of religion. It should not happen that one particular religion is not progressing and the other religions are progressing. So this is one analysis that has been drawn about, that for an economy to be successful, for India to be at the aim of $5 trillion economy, it should ensure that equality of opportunity is what is there. Otherwise, even if India becomes a $5 trillion economy, it is not of much use, is what has been highlighted. Next, the editorial is discussing about the natural capital. Now, this is basically about conserving the nature. Here, the editorial is saying that approximately 2/3 of the world's most polluted cities are what are in India. The life expectancy of people because of air pollution is what is coming down. So, for economy to be a valuable economy, what is important is that nature should be conserved, primarily because pollution is what impacts the poor more than the richer, and that is one issue that India needs to address. That is what has been discussed. In the end, the editorial offers us an idea, it offers us a suggestion of realigned growth. It says that it is only when this entire growth process of the country is realigned based on these suggestions, only then can economy be an effective and a valuable economy. And this is one economy which will be less damaging to the people. And even if this target of $5 trillion economy is what is not reached, even then the economy will be of much more of a worth than an economy which is only measured in numbers but has less worth to the citizens. So that is the entire analysis of this particular article. Indeed important. This article is important from social issues point of view for General Studies paper 1. Also in the economy part of General Studies paper 3, also this article will be relevant. So that is where you have to use this article. For essays also these kind of analysis and points are what are relevant. So that is the importance of this article. Coming to the next article, the forgotten funds. Now this is an article that is context with regards to the proceeds that are received by the government of the cesses that are imposed by the government. Few points are what are relevant for us. So we shall be discussing them. First and foremost, an analysis is what has been drawn about as to what is a cess. Now basically a cess is what is levied on a tax. It is not levied on the taxable income but already on a tax. When a tax is what is imposed on a tax, then that is what is a cess. And another thing that is important about a tax is a cess, is that it is for a specific demand. A tax largely that the government is taking, it could be for any reason. The government is not stating the reason. But whenever a cess is what is taken, a reason is what is clearly stated. For example, the Krishi Kalyan cess, the education cess, infrastructure cess, or climate cess, these kind of cess is always levied with an aim. So that is what is a cess. This is some basic aspect. Next, you should know about the Consolidated Fund of India. Now all the receipts that are received under a cess are what are deposited in the Consolidated Fund of India. This is the fund in which all the from which all expenditures are made, in which all incomes of the government is what is there. The money from the Consolidated Fund of India is what can be taken out only after it has been approved by the Parliament in the form of the budget. So that is what you need to know, that the money from the cess is what is under the CFI. Now some data is what has been offered in this editorial, and very specific data in the case of education sector is what has been talked about. And I don't think that this kind of a very, very specific case is what is important, but still just for some comparative point of view, you should know that approximately it is being said that from the education cess, approximately 4,25,795 crore is what was gained by the government, and compared to this, the expenditure in the year 2018 was 79,435 crore. So clearly the editorial is highlighting that the income was very, very high, but expenditure was very, very less. And why this expenditure has not happened is what is the gist of this particular article. It is only criticizing the government that the cess that has been levied by the government is what is not being used efficiently, and the government should ensure that these cesses are what are put to use, and progress is what is done, development is what is brought about. So that is what is the entire analysis here. Also, one thing that I found important in this article is with regards to an analysis of the purpose of cess and taxes. Now, whenever a cess, or for that matter, a tax is what is levied, It is under the vision of a collective socio-economic purpose or goal for a country. When all the citizens in the country have one goal, for example, we have a goal of educating all the children in our country. So in that regard, all the citizens are contributing to the taxes which the government is collecting, and then the government is spending this for achieving this particular goal. So that is the novel idea behind any cess, or for that matter any tax. But in this context, what is important is that because this idea is that of a collective participation, in this the role of the citizens is important as well as that of the government is important. For the citizens, it is their responsibility to pay the taxes honestly, but it is also the responsibility of the government to spend the taxes responsibly. In this particular case, what is happening is that the government is charging these cesses, but it is not effectively spending them. So in that context, it is important that the government recognizes its duties and it efficiently uses the cess. So that is what has been analyzed in this particular article. I am doubting a direct question on cess as such, but definitely if there is scope, you can use this particular point as a fodder material for your answer. So that is going to be the relevance. Coming to the next article, Beyond May Day. Now the context here is with regards to the Jet Airways. It is a repetitive article. We have discussed a lot about Jet Airways, so not much relevance here. Coming to the issues that, however, have been discussed. First issue is with regards to the Insolvency and the Bankruptcy Code of 2016. Now basically this code was what was aimed at reviving companies that were bankrupt, that were failing. But in this case of Jet Airways, this is what has not happened. Revival of Jet Airways is what has not happened, and the company has actually stopped functioning and it has actually gone bankrupt is what has been discussed. Now there are several reasons for this. This is primarily because there was a delayed reference of the Jet Airways to the IBC. It should have been done earlier, so that is what has been the first analysis here. Now what is new to this particular article is the case of USA. Now there is something called Chapter 11. So this is what you should remember. Chapter 11 on bankruptcies in US is a chapter, and as per under this particular chapter, after the attacks on the US Twin Towers, what had happened was that the credibility of the airways in US was what was lost. Airlines in US were facing the credibility crisis, and at that point of time some airlines had gone bankrupt, for example the Delta and United Airlines, but the US had revived this bankrupt airlines. So the editorial is discussing that India should have adopted this model or this Chapter 11 of bankruptcies of the US rather than allowing Jet Airways to go bankrupt. So, because you should understand that this has a lot of domino impact. The airline industry itself is going to be impacted. Competition is what is reduced. It gives a bad image of the country. Several people are going to lose their jobs because of this. So this has a lot of impact. So whenever a company as huge as the Jet Airways is what can be saved, the government should have focused on that. Also, the editorial is highlighting some challenges which we have discussed a lot in detail, but still just to name them. First and foremost is with regards to the tax on the aviation turbine fuels, also on the airport's levies that are charged on the airlines, also the pricing strategy of the airlines which are not very efficient, because of which a large number of airlines quote their prices very, very low, and as a result of which it makes them unsustainable in the long run. So these are some issues we have already discussed. Only new point in this analysis is with regards to this Chapter 11 of US. Sometimes we are expected to offer some suggestions. So in that context, you can use this particular example of Chapter 11 of bankruptcies of the US. That was a model that India could have adopted. So that is how you have to use this, and that will be the relevant. Now with this, we finish today's discussion, and I thank you all for watching the video.